"Ma'am, you need to move. This seat is reserved for our platinum members only." The words sliced through the Orion Air first-class cabin, sharp and cold. Dozens of heads turned in unison, eyes narrowing on the black woman in seat 12A. Dr. Lena Brooks did not flinch. She closed her silver laptop with deliberate calm, her manicured fingers steady despite the heavy weight of 50 strangers' stares. The air shifted. The subtle hum of the aircraft seemed louder as tension spread row by row. What should have been the quiet comfort of first class was now a stage, and Lena sat at its center. Flight attendant Kelly Sloan stood in the aisle, her pressed uniform immaculate, posture rigid, voice laced with condescension. The unspoken message lingered in the air. "You don't belong here." Lena's gaze remained forward. She placed the laptop carefully on her tray table, her silence carrying a weight of its own. Phones stirred from pockets. The businessman in 14B adjusted his camera discreetly. Across the aisle, a woman folded her arms, shaking her head at what was already unraveling before takeoff. The Orion Air first-class cabin buzzed with whispers, a low current of curiosity and discomfort. Kelly Sloan remained in the aisle, her blonde hair pulled into a flawless bun, her professional smile sharp as glass. "I'm sure there's been some confusion about your seating assignment," she said, her tone dripping with superiority. Across the rows, passengers shifted uneasily. The atmosphere thickened with tension, as if everyone sensed they were watching something wrong yet familiar. In row 14B, a businessman angled his phone higher, pressing the screen to begin recording. His voice, low but audible, carried into the cabin. "Unbelievable. They're trying to move her out of first class." Across the aisle, a middle-aged woman let out a faint sigh, shaking her head in quiet disgust. Her eyes lingered on Lena, sympathy etched into her face. The soft chime of another phone unlocking echoed behind them. More hands, more cameras. The spectacle was underway. "Doctor." Lena Brooks sat motionless in 12A, the subtle Orion Air logo on her leather briefcase catching the overhead light. She raised her head with measured calm, preparing to speak, the storm already forming around her. Dr. Lena Brooks rested her hands lightly on the armrest, her expression calm, her voice low but precise. "Have you ever been judged by the color of your skin rather than the content of your character?" she asked, her words clear enough for the rows around her to hear. "What would you do when your worth is questioned in front of strangers?" The cabin felt quieter, the question hanging in the air like a challenge none were ready to answer. Kelly Sloan's smile did not falter. If anything, it sharpened, her lips curving into something that looked more like victory than courtesy. She leaned closer, her tone dripping with condescension. "Ma'am, I understand airline policies can be confusing. Economy seating is toward the back of the aircraft." Lena did not waver. She reached calmly into her purse, pulling out a crisp, printed boarding pass. Her hand was steady as she held it up. "Seat 12A, confirmation number Echo 749 Alpha," she said evenly. Kelly glanced at the ticket, barely allowing her eyes to settle on the text. Her dismissive tone returned instantly. "These documents can be easily forged nowadays. Mr. Malloy is one of our most valued customers." Around them, more passengers reached for their phones. The quiet indignation in the cabin was growing louder, even if spoken only through screens. Murmurs rippled through the cabin as more phones tilted upward, the small red lights of live recording blinking in the dimmed first-class light. In row 14B, the businessman whispered into his phone, "This is unbelievable. They are removing a black woman from first class." His words, caught by the microphone, carried out to his growing audience online. An elderly woman in 10C leaned forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Excuse me, miss, but she showed you her boarding pass." Kelly Sloan's jaw tightened, the veneer of professionalism cracking at the edges. "Ma'am, please don't interfere. We handle these situations according to company policy." Dr. Lena Brooks remained perfectly still, her posture impeccable, every line of her body radiating quiet defiance. She had learned long ago that silence could be sharper than words. Her eyes tracked Kelly's movements. The crossed arms, the deliberate shift in tone, the way she spoke slower, louder, as though English were foreign to Lena's ears. Above them, the captain's voice broke through the intercom. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure in 10 minutes. Kelly gestured upward as if to prove her point. "You see, we're already behind schedule because of this confusion." The cabin's attention shifted toward the front, where a disturbance at the boarding door signaled another arrival. The commotion at the boarding door grew louder until a portly man in his 50s pushed his way inside. His cheeks were flushed, his expensive suit slightly wrinkled from haste, but his stride carried the arrogance of someone rarely told no. Malloy, he announced loudly, adjusting his cufflinks as if the entire cabin had been waiting on him. Sorry I'm late. Conference call ran over. Relief spread across Kelly Sloan's face. Mr. Malloy, no problem at all. I was just handling a seating issue. Peter Malloy's gaze fell on Lena with casual dismissal, the kind that stung more than open hostility. Ah, yes. Thank you for taking care of this. I knew my assistant had booked correctly. He loosened his tie and dropped heavily into the seat beside her, 12B, acting as though her presence were a temporary inconvenience. First class is so much more civilized, don't you think? He said smugly, settling into the wide leather seat. On Lena's tray table, her phone buzzed sharply. Caller ID, Nora, executive assistant. She declined once. It buzzed again. A text followed. Board meeting moved to 3:00 p.m. Need confirmation ASAP. Kelly's voice cut back in, sharper this time, authority swelling with Malloy's arrival. Ma'am, I need you to gather your belongings and move to your assigned seat. This is my assigned seat, Lena replied quietly, her voice steady as steel. In 11A, a young woman raised her phone, speaking loudly enough for the cabin to hear. This is racial profiling. A flush rose on Kelly's cheeks. This has nothing to do with race. This is about proper documentation and company policy. Lena shifted slightly, her briefcase at her side, its clasp catching the light, the corporate logo glinting faintly for anyone observant enough to notice. Dr. Lena Brooks opened her leather briefcase, just slightly, enough for a glimpse of meticulously organized files inside. Several bore the embossed Orion Air logo, but Kelly Sloan was too wrapped in her own sense of authority to notice. Malloy shifted comfortably in 12B, stretching his legs. Could I get some champagne while we sort this out? He asked, snapping his fingers toward Kelly. Of course, sir, Kelly answered immediately, signaling to another attendant, eager to please. Lena's phone buzzed again, insistent. This time, she accepted the call, her voice calm and precise. I'm sorry, Nora, but I'm dealing with a customer service situation right now, she said evenly. Then, after a pause that seemed to echo across the cabin, she added, yes, on one of our flights. Kelly froze mid-step, her confident facade faltering as the words landed. Our flights. Still on the phone, Lena continued, please reschedule the board meeting. And, Nora, make sure you're documenting everything about our current passenger experience evaluation. The word hung heavy in the air. Evaluation. Malloy frowned, turning his head toward her. Evaluation? Are you some kind of mystery shopper? Passengers exchanged glances, whispers rising. Phones stayed aloft, capturing every angle. The businessman in 14B leaned closer into his camera, his voice a hushed mix of shock and excitement. Wait, did she just say our flights? Oh my god, guys, I think this woman works for the airline. The murmurs in the first-class cabin swelled, passengers glancing from Lena to Kelly, then back again. Phones hovered in the air like witnesses, lenses fixed on every word. On social media, the hashtag #HasSeatGate had already begun to trend, notifications buzzing in real time as live streams spread beyond the cabin walls. Kelly Sloan's confidence faltered, but did not break. She straightened her shoulders, her tone brittle but firm. Ma'am, regardless of who you are, company policy requires proper identification for first-class seating. Lena's expression remained unreadable. She reached into her briefcase again, her movements deliberate, each action measured like a ritual. You're absolutely right about company policy, she said softly, almost like an agreement. The captain's voice returned over the intercom, calm but edged with impatience. 8 minutes to departure. Peter Malloy shifted uneasily in his seat. He tugged at his tie, glancing between Lena and Kelly. Look, I don't want any trouble. If there's some mix-up, no mix-up, Kelly interrupted quickly, seizing the moment. This is a clear case of attempted seat fraud. The words cut through the cabin, sharp and reckless. Lena's hand paused on the clasp of her briefcase. Her gaze lifted slowly, locking on Kelly. Fraud, she repeated quietly. That is a serious accusation. The entire cabin fell silent, the hum of engines filling the void. Phones recorded in absolute stillness as the weight of the words settled, heavier than the pressurized air around them. The tension snapped as the cabin door swung open. Striding down the aisle came Victor Ames, the gate manager, his face flushed from haste, his steps heavy with authority. What's the situation here? He demanded, scanning the rows without really looking at Lena. Kelly Sloan straightened, relief in her tone as she pointed. Passenger without proper first-class credentials, refusing to move. Victor's assessment was quick, almost dismissive. He barely glanced at the boarding pass still in Lena's hand. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to cooperate with our crew or we'll have to involve airport security. The businessman in 14B leaned closer to his phone, whispering for his live stream audience. This is Victor Ames, gate manager for Orion Air. He just threatened to call security on a black woman who already showed her boarding pass. Lena remained perfectly composed, her hands folded neatly in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, controlled, almost too soft for the weight of her words. Mr. Ames, are you familiar with Section 14.3 of the Orion Air Employee Handbook regarding customer dignity protocols? Victor's eyes narrowed. His reply was sharp, defensive. Ma'am, I don't need passengers quoting policy to me. Lena tilted her head slightly, unbothered. Actually, you might. The words lingered like a quiet threat, their force amplified by the silence in the cabin. At that moment, two uniformed airport security officers appeared at the aircraft door, their presence igniting another ripple of unease among the passengers. The sight of the two security officers at the cabin door sent a ripple of tension through first class. Passengers who had been quietly watching now leaned forward openly, phones raised higher, recording every moment. The elderly woman in 10C stood abruptly, her voice trembling with indignation. "This is disgraceful," she said, holding up her own ticket. "Please sit down, ma'am," one of the officers responded quickly. "We're handling this." Lena's phone buzzed again in her hand. This time, she answered without hesitation, pressing the speaker button so her words carried through the cabin. "Nora, can you conference in legal? I'm experiencing a situation that may require documentation." "Legal?" Malloy's voice pitched upward, incredulous. "What kind of mystery shopper needs legal?" Victor Ames stepped closer, trying to reclaim authority in front of the officers. "Ma'am, you have two choices. Leave voluntarily or be escorted off this aircraft." The businessman in 14B whispered urgently into his live stream, his audience count climbing rapidly. "Viewers, you're watching this live. Orion Air's gate manager is threatening to remove a black woman who has already shown her boarding pass. This is unreal." On the screens of passengers and strangers alike, comments poured in faster than they could be read. "This is so wrong. Sue them. Which airline is this?" Lena looked up at Victor with calm eyes, her tone even, deliberate. "Are you certain you want to proceed with forced removal?" Victor's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, the decision is final." Richardson shifted uncomfortably in his seat, trying to lighten the mood with nervous laughter. "Look, maybe I can move to another seat. I don't want this to become a big thing." "Mr. Malloy, please stay seated," Kelly Sloan said firmly, her voice tightening. "This woman is clearly trying to manipulate the situation." Lena opened her briefcase slowly, pulling out a sleek black leather folder. The movement was deliberate, unhurried, as though she had all the time in the world. Inside were several official-looking documents, business cards, and a piece of corporate identification. The young woman in 11A gasped audibly. "Oh my God, look at her ID!" Her phone shook slightly as she tried to zoom in, capturing every detail for her audience. Victor Ames leaned forward but couldn't see clearly from his angle. His voice carried irritation, masking unease. "Ma'am, whatever credentials you think you have—" "I don't think I have them," Lena interrupted softly, her words landing like a gavel. "I know I do." Overhead, the captain's voice broke through again, this time clipped and impatient. 5 minutes to departure. Flight attendants, please secure the cabin." Kelly looked toward the cockpit, then back at Lena, her jaw tight. "The captain's getting impatient. Time to go." Lena's phone rang again, the sharp tone cutting through the silence. She answered immediately, her voice firm. "Nora, are you recording this call? Good. Can you patch in the director of operations?" For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Victor's face. His shoulders stiffened. "Director of operations?" he echoed, his confidence slipping. "Yes," Lena continued into the phone, unbothered by his reaction. "I need you to pull the employee files for Kelly Sloan, badge number 4847, and Victor Ames, employee ID 21993. Both Kelly and Victor paled visibly, their faces draining of color as murmurs surged through the cabin. "How do you know our badge numbers?" Victor demanded, his voice cracking under the weight of sudden doubt. Lena did not answer him directly. Instead, she spoke clearly into her phone, her calmness unnerving. "Also, pull the customer service incident reports for the past 6 months. I want to see if this is a pattern." The two security officers exchanged uneasy glances. One leaned slightly toward the other, whispering, "This doesn't feel right." Kelly Sloan crossed her arms, trying to steady herself, though her hands trembled against her sleeves. Her eyes darted nervously between the folder in Lena's lap and the rows of passengers openly filming. "Ma'am, we need to resolve this quickly." one of the officers said, stepping forward, his tone more cautious than forceful. The flight needs to depart. Lena lifted her gaze to him, her voice calm but unyielding. Resolution is exactly what I'm working toward. Peter Malloy suddenly stood, his face flushed with discomfort. I don't know what's happening here, but I don't want any part of it. Jessica, just give me another seat. This isn't worth the hassle. Sir, please stay seated, Kelly said quickly, her voice almost desperate now. This woman is clearly trying to cause trouble. The live streamer in 14B kept his phone raised, his voice urgent for the thousands watching in real time. Audience count is over 10,000 now. This is blowing up. You're seeing this unfold live, guys. Comments scrolled endlessly across his screen. Stand your ground. Don't let them remove her. This is discrimination. For the first time since the confrontation began, Dr. Lena Brooks slowly rose from her seat. The cabin fell utterly silent as her presence filled the space. Her height, her poise, her deliberate movements commanded attention with the authority of someone used to boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations. Miss Ames, Lena said evenly, her voice carrying through the hushed cabin, in your 3 years as gate manager, how many passengers have you personally had removed from aircraft? Victor's mouth opened, then closed again. His face twitched as he searched for words. That's not relevant. It's very relevant, Lena replied, her tone steady and sharp, especially when those removal statistics are broken down by passenger demographic. The security officers shifted uncomfortably. One leaned closer to his partner and muttered, She's right. This doesn't feel good. The tension in the cabin deepened, every eye fixed on the confrontation. Phones stayed high, capturing not just images, but the unmistakable shift in power. Sensing the momentum slipping, Kelly Sloan tried a last desperate push. Security, please escort this passenger off the aircraft immediately. She's disrupting our schedule and harassing crew members. Lena turned toward her slowly, her gaze soft but unyielding. There was almost a trace of pity in her eyes. Miss Sloan, she said quietly, I'm going to give you one final opportunity to handle this situation professionally. Kelly stiffened, forcing her voice louder, though it shook. The decision is final. Lena nodded once, as if confirming something to herself. Then, with deliberate calm, she reached into her briefcase again and withdrew a single white business card. The cabin fell silent, as if even the background hum of the aircraft paused. Passengers leaned forward, cameras zooming, anticipation thick in the air. Lena held the card delicately between two fingers, the corporate logo gleaming under the cabin lights. The businessman in 14B zoomed his camera as close as he could, whispering to his live stream, Holy, guys, you need to see this. Victor Ames squinted from several feet away, unable to make out the print but sensing the gravity in the moment. Richardson leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse, his curiosity battling with unease. Would you like to see my identification now? Lena asked, her voice calm, almost gentle. Kelly's hand trembled as she reached for the card. The moment stretched endlessly as she read the simple black text against the stark white cardstock. Her face drained of color. The card slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the carpeted floor like a verdict. Victor bent quickly to pick it up, his eyes scanning the words. When he straightened, his expression had transformed, authority replaced by sheer panic. The security officers, sensing the sudden shift, stepped closer. One asked cautiously, Ma'am, is everything all right here? Lena's response was steady, unwavering. Officers, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps Mr. Ames would like to explain. Victor's mouth opened, but no words came out. His lips moved soundlessly as he stared at the business card in his hands. The cabin fell into an almost surreal silence. Phones hovered mid-air, live stream viewers spiking by the hundreds in real time. Victor Ames finally found his voice, stammering, I don't understand. Who? Lena's eyes locked with his, unflinching. I am the majority shareholder of this airline. That should clarify the situation, don't you think? A collective gasp rippled across the business class cabin. Several passengers whispered to each other, some discreetly recording, others wide-eyed in shock. Richardson swallowed hard, realizing the magnitude of what had just been revealed. Wait, the owner? Lena nodded, maintaining her composed posture, letting the weight of her authority settle over the room like a tangible presence. Kelly sank into her seat, staring down at the floor, her earlier arrogance replaced with dread. One officer, still unsure, asked, Sir, ma'am, what should we do now? Lena's calm voice carried with precision, You will escort Mr. Puemebar, Ames and his party to the rear of the plane. I expect full cooperation, and I'll handle the rest. Victor Ames's jaw tightened. Sweat formed at his temples as he realized he was no longer the one in control. The livestream chat exploded, emojis and shocked reactions flooding the screen. Lena's strategic silence spoke louder than any words. Victor Ames stumbled backward, finally realizing that every move he had made on this flight had been under Lena's scrutiny. I can explain, he muttered, voice cracking. His attempt at regaining control fell flat against the incredulous eyes of both passengers and crew. Lena's gaze never wavered. She slowly extracted a sleek tablet from her bag, opening a dashboard with financials, board minutes, and real-time stock metrics. The numbers glowed under the cabin lights, impossible to ignore. This, she said, pointing to a highlighted line, is your company's latest revenue forecast. Every delay, every policy violation, every complaint I've tracked is here. And yes, your margin manipulation is documented. A hush settled. Flight attendants peeked from the galley, exchanging worried glances. The magnitude of Lena's oversight and authority became unmistakable. Victor Ames swallowed hard. I wasn't aware. You were aware, Lena interrupted calmly. You simply assumed no one was watching. I am always watching. A crew member, visibly relieved, whispered to a colleague. She's in total control. Victor Ames's attempts to speak further were cut short as Lena tapped her tablet, sending a message directly to the airline's central compliance system. Incident on Flight 742. Immediate review required. Full audit to follow. Passengers shifted uneasily, some capturing the moment on their phones. The live stream now counted over 12,000 viewers, each witnessing the unfolding accountability in real time. Lena leaned back slightly, her expression composed, authoritative, and unshakable. We will proceed with corrective actions immediately. The law, company policy, and ethics demand it. Victor Ames sagged into his seat, finally realizing he was no longer in charge. The cabin remained silent, punctuated only by the soft hum of the engines. Passengers glanced at one another, their phones out, capturing every second. Lena's calm, deliberate presence had shifted the power entirely. Victor Ames's hands trembled as he fumbled with the edge of his tablet. You can't just... You underestimate what I can, Lena interrupted, her voice steady, resonant, carrying authority that left no room for debate. She flicked her wrist and the flight attendant's earpieces buzzed. Notify ground security. 1 male passenger flagged for misconduct. Do not engage without my confirmation. The attendants froze, eyes wide, realizing they were following orders from the woman they had only assumed was a passenger. Victor tried to regain composure, leaning forward, but every glance he threw toward Lena was met with unwavering calm. His attempts at intimidation, once effortless, now felt hollow and impotent. From the back of the cabin, a passenger whispered into their live stream, "Is she like the owner or something?" Lena didn't answer verbally. Instead, she rotated her tablet to show a clearly marked corporate seal, board-level credentials, and a 42% controlling stake in the airline. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, murmurs, a ripple of astonishment through the cabin. Victor's face paled. This isn't possible." "It is," Lena said softly, almost conversationally. "And now that you know, everything will proceed according to policy. Misconduct is documented. Action is inevitable." The cabin's atmosphere shifted entirely. The once tense energy, fueled by Victor's arrogance, was now a collective acknowledgement of Lena's absolute authority. Victor Ames slumped into his seat, defeated, while passengers quietly captured the moment, the social media feed exploding with likes, shares, and live comments. Victor Ames's hands shook as he clutched the armrest, realizing he had misjudged everything. Every attempted maneuver, every subtle threat he had planned, evaporated in the presence of Lena's silent authority. "Document everything," Lena instructed the lead flight attendant, her finger tracing the cabin floor as if marking the perimeter of her control. "Include timestamps, passenger witness statements, and video captures. This will be forwarded to the compliance team immediately upon landing." The attendants exchanged nervous glances, the hum of the cabin's ventilation now sounding like a ticking clock. Lena's tablet displayed a live feed of Victor's prior infractions, notes, complaints, and internal reports. She tapped each one, methodically, exposing a pattern that left no room for excuse. Victor's voice cracked. You're exposing all of that?" "Yes," Lena said. Her tone was calm, deliberate, and final. "Transparency is mandatory, accountability is non-negotiable. Or from the aisle, the passengers leaned closer, some whispering, some silently filming. A young woman's live stream comment popped up. This black woman is owning the plane. Unreal. Lena's gaze swept the cabin. She didn't need to raise her voice. The weight of her presence ensured attention. Even Victor couldn't meet her eyes. Victor Ames, you will remain seated. Any attempt to leave your assigned area will be considered obstruction of official proceedings. Understood? He swallowed hard, nodding mutely. The authority shift was complete. Every passenger now understood. Lena wasn't just a passenger. She was the controller, the enforcer, the arbiter. As Lena prepared to initiate the next step, her hand hovered over the tablet, ready to dispatch notices to both corporate legal and federal oversight. Every movement was precise, measured, unyielding. The cabin's collective attention remained fixed entirely on her, the live stream numbers skyrocketing in real time. This was no ordinary confrontation, it was a public demonstration of power, order, and accountability. Lena swiped her tablet, activating the direct line to the airline's corporate legal team. The screen split to show multiple incoming feeds: airport security, the operations center, and compliance officers, each waiting for her instructions. Confirm the incident log, she said to the lead attendant. Cross-reference passenger statements with security footage. Any discrepancies will be flagged automatically. The attendants scrambled, typing, recording, scanning. Victor Ames's expression had shifted from arrogance to panic, his eyes darting as he realized the full scope of what he was up against. Lena continued, her voice calm but carrying authority. Prepare the formal notice. Include timestamps, names, and every documented breach of protocol. This plane is not just a space. It's a record of accountability. Victor's lips trembled. You can do all of this while we're in the air? Yes, Lena replied, tapping the final confirmation button. Every action taken here is automatically logged. There is no ambiguity. Compliance and legal teams are already reviewing in real time. A few passengers exchanged amazed glances. Whispers and quiet murmurs filled the cabin. One man muttered, "She's not just confronting him. She's rewriting the rules mid-flight." The live stream viewership spiked. Comments poured in. Black woman CEO energy unmatched. This is how you handle a corporate bully. Lena just took control of the plane. Victor Ames tried to interrupt, but Lena raised a finger. The single gesture silenced him instantly. He slumped back, defeated. Lena leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady. This is the final warning. Any obstruction, any false report, or any attempt to evade accountability will result in immediate reporting to federal oversight. Understood? Victor swallowed hard. Understood. With the cabin under her control and compliance procedures now fully engaged, Lena began the next phase, ensuring Victor's accountability extended beyond just verbal submission. Lena tapped a sequence on her tablet, and the plane's internal communication system hummed to life with a soft chime. Cabin crew members straightened, awaiting instructions. Begin documenting every passenger interaction, she said, voice precise. Use body cams and time-stamped audio logs. Nothing can be altered or disputed later. The attendants exchanged glances, a mix of awe and tension in their eyes. They activated their devices, and the quiet clicks of recording began. Victor Ames shifted uncomfortably, aware that every word, every movement was now under scrutiny. He attempted a weak protest. "This is overkill. You already can't," Lena interrupted, voice calm but steel-edged. "I am ensuring procedural integrity, not just for this incident, but for every passenger affected by misconduct today." She swiped again. The tablet displayed a live dashboard. Flight attendants' recordings, timestamps, witness statements, and real-time social media mentions. Viewers were climbing exponentially. Victor's panic deepened. He realized the magnitude. His behavior was now fully documented in real time and visible to thousands online. Each moment fed into an irrefutable record. A passenger leaned toward his neighbor, whispering, "She's methodical. Every move is logged. This isn't just a confrontation, it's a legal operation mid-flight." Lena's eyes scanned the cabin, unwavering. Compliance officers will review this footage immediately upon landing. Any deviation from proper conduct will be escalated to federal authorities. Victor's shoulders slumped, the fight drained from him. He muttered almost inaudibly, I didn't think it would be like this." Lena didn't respond. She simply monitored the data streams, each log point reinforcing her control and the inevitability of accountability. The cabin's atmosphere shifted. Where panic had once lingered, there was now a palpable respect, a recognition that Lena's authority was absolute, her procedures flawless. Victor Ames's hands trembled as he stared at the live dashboard. Every inappropriate remark, every dismissive gesture, captured, logged, time-stamped, and circulating online. His face paled under the cabin lights. "Please remain seated," Lena's voice cut through the murmurs. "Further resistance will only extend the consequences. Compliance is your only option." A cabin attendant approached, holding a tablet displaying Victor's cumulative conduct report. Graphs, clips, and social media interactions scrolled across the screen. Each entry was a stark, undeniable record. Victor tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He glanced around the cabin. The passengers' eyes were fixed, phones poised, faces a mix of astonishment and quiet validation. "This is beyond embarrassment," he muttered under his breath. "It's documentation for law enforcement." Lena's gaze didn't waver. She tapped the tablet again, projecting a small panel on the overhead display. The cabin watched as Victor's actions were chronologically sequenced, a detailed timeline of misconduct. Each entry was annotated, highlighting policy violations and passenger complaints. Victor's body stiffened. I didn't know it was that serious." "Intent doesn't excuse action," Lena replied sharply. "Every misstep has consequences, and today those consequences are immediate." The murmurs of the passengers grew louder. Comments flickered on live feeds. "Finally, accountability on a flight. She's showing real power and precision. This is historic, someone documenting in real time." Victor's eyes darted to the cockpit, hoping for some unseen reprieve. But even there, the captain's nod was firm. Lena's authority was absolute, backed by the airline's protocols and federal oversight. A hush fell over the cabin. The realization was unanimous. Victor had underestimated the situation, and every move from now on would be scrutinized, recorded, and irreversible. Lena leaned slightly forward, her tone quiet but unyielding. "Let this be a lesson. Misconduct cannot hide behind privilege. Every action matters, every witness counts, and every record stands as proof." Victor sank into his seat, defeated, fully aware that his behavior had been immortalized, not just in memory, but in irrefutable evidence. Lena stood straight-backed as she activated the onboard reporting system. The screen above flickered, now showing a live feed of Victor Ames's cumulative infractions alongside policy manuals and regulatory citations. "Attention all personnel," Lena's voice resonated through the cabin. "We are documenting violations of conduct, passenger safety protocols, and anti-discrimination policies. This record is being transmitted directly to corporate compliance, federal oversight agencies, and internal audit teams." Victor's eyes widened. The gravity of the situation sank in further. This wasn't just a personal humiliation. Every remark, every dismissive gesture, every obstruction of protocol was now part of an official report. The lead flight attendant, a young woman with a calm but determined expression, handed Lena a stack of tablets displaying passenger statements. Lena scanned the feedback, real-time commentary, witness accounts, and corroborated complaints, all organized and time-stamped. Victor tried to interject. I didn't mean to." "You did," Lena cut him off sharply. "Intent is irrelevant when actions compromise safety and violate policy. This is now a matter of accountability, and you will face immediate consequences." On the overhead monitors, Lena highlighted the first action items: mandatory retraining, suspension of privileges, and formal notation in personnel records. Each consequence was linked to specific infractions, leaving no room for dispute. The cabin remained tense, passengers silent but engaged, watching the system process every step. Social media notifications pinged in real time, viewers commenting, sharing, and validating the proceedings. Victor slumped lower in his seat, the weight of recorded evidence pressing down. The realization was stark. The narrative had shifted entirely. Lena controlled the timeline, the proof, and the exposure. She leaned slightly forward, her eyes fixed on him. "Let this be understood. Misconduct, regardless of rank or status, meets with immediate, documented, and enforceable accountability. There are no exceptions. Every witness, every record, every moment matters." Victor swallowed hard. He knew in this precise moment that his professional and personal reputation was unraveling, irrevocably logged and observed not only by the cabin but by authorities beyond it. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as Lena initiated the next protocol. On the main display, a live dashboard now showed real-time passenger feedback, flagging complaints of verbal harassment and procedural violations. From the middle of the cabin, a passenger raised their tablet. "I recorded the entire interaction," she said. "All of it. Your misconduct is documented." Lena nodded, acknowledging the evidence. She tapped her tablet, integrating the passenger footage into the central compliance record. Within seconds, the system cross-referenced timestamps, witness statements, and prior complaints against Victor. Victor Ames's face drained of color. You can't," he started, but Lena interrupted. "Not only can we must," Lena replied calmly. "This data ensures accountability is immediate and verifiable." A soft chime signaled another alert. The Flight Operations Center had joined the live feed. An agent appeared on the overhead screen, a neutral but authoritative presence. "We are reviewing all incident data," the agent said. "All violations will be processed per federal aviation guidelines, and internal disciplinary measures will proceed concurrently." Victor's hands trembled on the armrests. The layers of oversight, the passengers, Lena, and now regulatory intervention made the stakes undeniable. Every infraction, every dismissive gesture, every failed procedure was now public, documented, and actionable. Meanwhile, Lena continued methodically, distributing digital forms for passengers who wished to provide supplemental statements, clarifying that all input would be sent to corporate ethics, federal oversight, and safety committees. The cabin remained tense but orderly. Whispers of approval, subtle nods, and quiet recordings indicated a collective validation of Lena's authority and the correctness of her actions. Victor's voice cracked. I didn't realize." "You did realize," Lena corrected gently but firmly. "Intent is not the measure here. Impact is. Your accountability is inevitable." On the side monitors, notifications pinged constantly, social media reactions, corporate alerts, and live witness testimonies. The feedback loop made the unfolding events inescapable, transparent, and immediate. The cabin fell into a tense silence. Victor Ames sat rigid, his hands gripping the armrests as Lena rose slowly, tablet in hand, every motion precise. "I'm going to make this very clear," Lena said, her voice steady, cutting through the murmurs. "Your conduct violated corporate policy, federal regulations, and every standard of professional integrity expected on this flight." She tapped her tablet, projecting a live feed of his actions, timestamps, passenger statements, and prior internal reports. Each infraction lit up in red, drawing audible gasps from the cabin. Victor's face paled. This isn't..." "Not a debate," Lena interrupted. "This is accountability." She handed a printed summary to the lead flight attendant. "Deliver this directly to corporate headquarters, with full compliance verification." The passengers leaned in subtly, their recordings visible on their devices. Lena continued, showing ownership documents and board credentials. "For clarity, my position isn't just as a passenger or observer. I am the executive overseeing operations for this airline. All violations are being reported to me directly. And yes, that includes the actions you just attempted to dismiss." The cabin air seemed to tighten. Victor's protests faltered as Lena's calm authority radiated, the room collectively absorbing the weight of her position and the evidence arrayed before them. She paused, letting the silence settle, then tapped her tablet again. Notifications pinged, alerts to corporate, regulatory bodies, and the airline's legal team, all synchronized. Immediate disciplinary measures were now underway. Temporary suspension, review of all prior flights, and compliance retraining mandated. Victor slumped, realizing the full scope of the consequences. Lena stepped closer, not in anger, but in resolute clarity. "Your behavior has repercussions beyond this flight, but more importantly," Lena said, glancing at the cabin, "it illustrates why systemic oversight, transparency, and ethical accountability are non-negotiable." Passengers nodded subtly, whispering in approval, capturing every moment. Lena's authority was absolute, her power revealed quietly, yet irrefutably. By the time the plane leveled at cruising altitude, Victor Ames's downfall was fully documented, the passengers empowered as witnesses, and the airline's oversight protocols reaffirmed. The cabin hummed softly, the tension lingering like a tangible presence. Lena walked methodically down the aisle, her tablet projecting real-time compliance alerts to every crew member's device. Effective immediately, she announced, voice steady and authoritative, all flight staff will undergo mandatory bias and protocol training. Every operational procedure will be reviewed against federal aviation standards. She paused at the center of the cabin, letting passengers notice her calm precision. This isn't just about one incident. It's about creating a culture of accountability. Each action, each decision impacts every single person on board. The lead flight attendant, still holding the printed report, nodded solemnly. Lena continued, "Corporate headquarters has been notified. Your behavior, Victor Ames, I'm addressing you directly, will trigger full internal investigation, disciplinary review, and legal compliance checks." Victor's protests had dwindled to near silence. Lena tapped her tablet again, sending live updates to the airline board, regulatory agencies, and the legal department. Notifications chimed across devices, confirming immediate engagement. Passengers exchanged glances, their recording devices capturing every directive. Lena didn't need to raise her voice. The weight of authority and the clarity of evidence spoke for itself. Additionally, Lena continued, an anonymous reporting hotline will be established, monitored monthly, ensuring that any future misconduct is addressed without delay. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the cabin. Transparency, responsibility, integrity, these aren't optional, they are non-negotiable standards. By the time the seatbelt signs blinked off, the passengers understood. This flight wasn't just a journey from origin to destination. It had become a live demonstration of accountability, oversight, and systemic reform. Lena returned to her seat with measured calm, signaling the final phase. Part 25 would close the story, showing measurable outcomes, public accountability, and the ripple effect across the airline industry. The cabin had settled into a quiet hum, the tension replaced by a palpable sense of resolution. Lena tapped her tablet one last time, sending final compliance confirmations to corporate headquarters, the airline board, and regulatory authorities. Outside, the sunset painted the tarmac in shades of amber and gold. Passengers filmed discreetly, already sharing clips online, the hashtag #FlightAccountability trending within minutes. The story was no longer confined to the cabin. It had gone viral, demanding accountability industry-wide. Lena stood, addressing the crew one final time. Metrics will be monitored monthly. Passenger complaints, staff evaluations, and adherence to bias-free operational standards. Immediate corrective action will be taken if any deviation is detected. The lead flight attendant stepped forward. "Ma'am, the crew, they understand now. They're committed." Lena nodded, eyes steady. Commitment is just the first step. Enforcement, transparency, and training will follow. This flight is a template for systemic reform across the entire airline. Passengers quietly applauded, some rising in acknowledgement. For once, a high-stakes confrontation had become a teachable moment, witnessed and documented in real time. By the time the plane touched down, Victor Ames had been removed from active duty, internal investigations underway, legal reviews initiated. Lena's tablet pinged with confirmation. All board members and regulators had received the report, including proposals for permanent policy changes and monthly compliance audits. Months later, the metrics reflected measurable change. Complaints decreased by 86%, customer satisfaction scores rose 34%, and internal bias training completion reached 100%. Other airlines began adopting similar protocols, influenced by the transparent, accountable model Lena had enforced. Lena walked through the terminal, blending into the crowd, her presence unnoticed yet her impact undeniable. Every screen, every news outlet, every social feed carried the story of how one decisive, prepared individual had transformed a single incident into systemic change. As she disappeared into the airport, a final message appeared on her tablet. Accountability isn't temporary, it's standard. She smiled subtly, the quiet power of consequence and reform firmly in place.